This is part 2 of a previous video, which is when I talk about the 5 good things about being broke and unemployed. So if you haven't seen that video, I'll leave a link in the comments below. Check it out. This is part 2 where I talk about the contrast, which is the 5 downsides about being broke and unemployed. The first downside about being broke and unemployed is that you can't go anywhere. You have hardcore FOMO, meaning fear of missing out, and basically when you're financially struggling, you can't afford to go to concerts, movie premieres, theme parks if you want to go to Disneyland or Six Flags, or go on a date at, like, I don't know, SeaWorld or something. Yeah, you probably can't and shouldn't be spending your money going out to these places because you're broke and unemployed, and you just got to stay home and look for jobs all day, all week, all month until you get a job. So when people are spending their summers going on these trips, seeing all these cool things, looking at Shamu jump out the freaking water, doing all these tricks. I don't even know what Shamu version they're on. It's probably like Shamu number 27 or something. But anyways, you can't afford to go see Shamu. You can't go on, the Universal Harry Potter ride, because you're broke and unemployed. And it's normal to feel like you're missing out because technically you are missing out. But, life has its ups and downs, and when you're broke and unemployed, you got to sacrifice some things. And the first thing you got to sacrifice is going out and having fun, because you got to stay home. Staying home, for the most part, is free. And when you're broke and unemployed, free means the correct thing to do. So, no concerts, no theme parks, no music festivals, no Coachella, none of that, no food fairs, no $25 movie premiere ticket. That's out the window. Oh, fuck. Anyways, yeah, so number 1 is you can't go anywhere, and you probably start getting FOMO, the feeling of FOMO. Number 2 is that when you are broke and unemployed, the urgency clock starts ticking louder. And what I mean by that is that every day, every week, there's a ticking time bomb, and that time bomb might represent your savings that is depleting every single day, or in another case, it is the longer you are unemployed, the bigger the gap is in your resume. And when that happens, it's harder for you to sell yourself to companies to hire you. But typically these days we all kind of lie, because companies are so shady and toxic and very manipulative that we're at a point where if you've been unemployed for a year, you just say you've been contracting for various gig jobs, and that you were just laid off 4 weeks ago, when in reality it's been 24 months. So I guess you could just do it that way, but it's still a factor. Every single day you are unemployed, the more your resume value depletes over time, which is very sad. So yeah, the clock ticks louder. Every day feels urgent, and as time passes by, it gets a little bit more stressful because you're headed towards something, and that something does not feel good, unless you have a job opportunity waiting for you. But aside from that, as the days go by, when your savings are depleting and you're still job hunting and there's no leads, it gets to your head. But that is number 2. Number 3 is that when you're broke and unemployed, there's a limit to you being the best version of yourself. And what I mean by that is you cannot be the best version of yourself when you're financially struggling and you don't have a job. And the reason I say that is because there's a lot of recreational activities, and there's a lot of things that people invest into themselves that make them better. It could be anything. It could be like your diet. The more expensive healthy foods really does dictate how you feel and your cognitive function. So if you're limited to highly processed cheap foods, like packaged frozen meals, ramen noodles, That's going to affect you. You can't be the best version of yourself eating those really junk foods. The other thing is, like recreational activities like expensive gym memberships or classes, or like, I don't know, muscle sports therapy, anything like that. Those things cost money. And when you're broke and unemployed, you're probably going to have to sacrifice those expenses, meaning that the best version of yourself that came out of these services and these things, like supplements and diet, the fact that you can't do that anymore and buy these things, you're going to decline a little bit. Meaning, you might not be as healthy as you could, and you might not be as mentally optimized as you would if you did have the funds to invest in yourself. That being said, it doesn't mean you just let yourself go and become fat and become like unhealthy. There's still ways you could manage your overall health and be the best version of yourself in your situation. But what I'm saying is, when you're financially struggling, it's it would be naive not to say that there is a limit to what you can be versus what you will be without the funds to put into yourself. That's all I'm saying. It's not just like diet and like health, but it's also knowledge. Let's just say you want to book, you want to hire a coach, you want to take a class that costs money online, or you just want to buy a bunch of books and read it. You want to buy like, a bunch of books and study it for a week, or do something recreational outside. It might cost money, and those things that I just listed are very beneficial to developing yourself and learning a new skill. And when you can't do these things, you're not gonna reach your true potential. So yes, reaching your true potential does cost money, whether you want to admit it or not. Anyways, that was number 3. Number 4 is that when you are broke and unemployed, your long-term goals have to be put on a pause, and your short-term goals are now your priority. And what I mean by that is that, when you're in this situation, you're living day to day. You're trying to survive the week. And in this situation, you're thinking, can I pay off my internet bill? Can I afford food? Do I have enough gas in the car? Can I make it to an interview if I land one this week? Can I keep the hosting services of my online portfolio running so that when a recruiter sees my application, will it go to a 404 page because I couldn't pay it, or will it still be there? These are the prioritized like concerns when you're broke and unemployed versus when you're not. When you're employed and you have disposable income, you could think about long-term goals like, I invested in this project which I want to launch live in like 6 months, so I'm going to focus on that. Or I want to book a vacation in December in winter, so I'm going to contact some Airbnbs and hotels and see what deals I could get, and then I'll put a down payment 5 months ahead of time. That is the things you could do when you are employed and you have disposable income. But when you're not, when you're the inverse of that, it is more of, can I fill my car with a tank of gas and make it to the destination that I need to go to this week? So yes, one of the number 4th downside of being broke and unemployed is that you are now focused on short-term, weekly goals rather than yearly, long-term goals. And the last one, we're finally on the last one, is when you are broke and unemployed, materialism is not a factor in your life anymore. So you're not going to upgrade your computer. There's no such thing as upgrading your car. The only thing you could buy with money are necessities like food or things that will contribute to you surviving and finding another job. So unless your computer is completely broken or your car does not run, you're not going to put money in that. There's no such thing as recreational shopping days. When you have money and you have a job, you could go on a date or walk around the mall, and if you see something you like, you might just like spontaneously buy it, and it could be a fun day. Like you get the little dopamine hit, like, oh, I bought a little watch, or I'm gonna get lunch. I'd even plan on getting lunch, but I'm gonna have a nice lunch, and then I'm gonna get a new watch, and that's gonna be my day. Those days you're not gonna have those days when you're broke and unemployed. When you're broke and unemployed, you're gonna just buy what you need. Okay, and that's probably gasoline. Those are your bills, and that's basic food, basic boring food, and just things that you require to not like stink or like end up in a bad situation. If you need to pay money for laundry, that's something you need to think about. But yeah, basically, when you're broke and unemployed, materialism becomes, if you don't need it, you don't buy it. And here's the thing. Sometimes even if you do need the thing, you can't afford to get it. Let's just say your car is overdue because the brakes are out, or the brakes are like really worn out, but replacing your brakes could be like a few $100 to $1,000. And if you're broke and unemployed, you're probably just gonna try and keep driving that car with worn out brakes and trying your best not to break them when you're driving. And also, lastly, when you're broke and unemployed, when it comes to materialism, discounts, deals, and sales, a lot of people would say those things are important when you're financially struggling, but in my opinion, I think that's false, and here's why. When you're really actually authentically broke and unemployed, it doesn't matter if something's on sale or discounted. If you're really broke, you don't even look at discounts anymore. You don't look at sales. You don't even look at what is being sold, because you can't afford it at all. Even if it's on sale, you can't afford it, so don't even look at it. In my experience, I only looked at discounts and sales when I was employed, because I could be like, oh, I have money, I could look into what businesses are providing deals. Now in my life, I don't even look at those things. I ignore all advertisements. I ignore all summer deals. Those don't apply to me. For example, I'm really into guitars, and if I saw a guitar that retailed for $800 and there was a closing out sale and they were selling that guitar for 60% off, I wouldn't even look at the sign, because I already know I could not afford that guitar. It would not be a smart investment, and I probably wouldn't even have the funds to purchase it. All right, so those were 5 bad things to being broke and unemployed. Let's do a recap. The first one was you can't go anywhere, and you have hardcore FOMO, fear of missing out. Number 2 is the ticking time bomb clicks louder because every day becomes more urgent. Number 3 is you're unable to be the best version of yourself because you're limited in what you could invest in yourself. Number 4 is your short-term goals become a priority and your long-term goals get paused. And lastly, 5, materialism is no longer a thing because if you don't need it, you don't buy it. Alright, that concludes the video. Let me know in the comments below what is your number 1 downside to being broke and unemployed, and subscribe for more content like this. I'll see you in the next video.